Hello from Brussels. Though we are based in Brussels, like most in the EU bubble, our ears and minds have been in Strasbourg this past week. Indeed, the city has been the stage for a few key events. The President of the Commission gave a State of Union at the plenary session on 13 September and the European Parliament has adopted the provisional agreement on the proposal to revise the Renewable Energy Directive. Pushpin register now. FEAD is organizing a conference on PFAS in the waste sector at ECOMONDO on the 8th of November. Join us for this exciting event. PFAS. The Commission published a call for Tenderson the strengthening the role of substitution planning in the context of REACH and other EU chemicals legislation. The Commission finds that the ban of substances have sometimes led to regrettable substitutions and cites bisphenols as an example. It wants to anticipate any difficulties with PFAS as the chemical may be subject to a general ban in the European Union. Renewable Energy Directive Amendment approved, RED, on the 12th of September, the European Parliament adopted the provisional agreement on the proposal to revise the Renewable Energy Directive reached in trilogues on the 16th of June. It was decided that the installation of sorting systems for residual municipal waste in incineration plants will not be mandatory at European level. The Council is now in a position to formally adopt the revised Renewable Energy Directive, following the European Parliament's final approval of the text. Air Quality Directive. MEPs have adopted a very ambitious negotiating mandate on the proposal to revise the Air Quality Directive on the 13th of September. Context has published a compromise proposal of the Spanish presidency on the revision of the Air Quality Directive. The text, from the 11th of September, removes the right of NGOs to bring collective legal action to seek compensation for victims of air pollution. This proposal is less ambitious than the position adopted by the European Parliament on the 13th of September, which calls for alignment with the WHO recommendations by 2035. Eco-Design for Sustainability of Products Regulation, ESPR, following a first round of trilogues between the Council and the European Parliament that took place on the 30th of August 2023, trilogues on ESP set to continue on the 10th of October while the co-legislators will hold internal meetings next week to discuss the outcome of the first trilogues. Waste Shipment Regulation Revision, WSR. Next week, Member States' ambassadors will prepare for the second round of trilogues on the proposal for new rules on EU waste shipments. The Permanent Representatives Committee, Corpa met over the 13th to the 15th of September 2023 and prepared the second round of trilogues. European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, gave her State of Union address on the 13th of September. Specifically mentioning the Net Zero Industry Act and the Critical Raw Materials Act, von der Leyen stated, "We need to finish this work and we need to develop an approach for each industrial ecosystem." She then announced that starting from this month, the European Commission will hold a series of clean transition dialogues with industry to help each sector build its business model for decarbonization, put together a European wind power package, improve the auction systems in the European Union, launch an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles' water resilience, in a letter of intent sent by Ursula von der Leyen, following her speech on the State of the Union. The lists of the key axes of the last months of the mandate are stated. Among its priorities is a water resilience initiative. Green Deal. The European Commissioner for the Environment, Virginijus Sinkevicius, doubts there will be an opportunity to release the revision of the REACH if the initial ambition is no longer there. On the 11th of September, HEP presented to the MEPs of the Environment Committee the latest legislation that appeared before the summer on soil monitoring, waste or mercury, and was asked about those that are still missing. He also acknowledged that the Soil Directive could have been more binding and more ambitious. Classification, Labeling and Packaging of Chemical Substances and Mixtures Regulation approved, CLP, in the European Parliament. The compromise on the classification of chemicals was approved by the ENVI Committee. Meeting in Strasbourg on the 11th of September, the Environment Committee supported all compromise amendments negotiated between parliamentary groups on the revision of the CLP regulation. Several additional amendments were also approved, in particular to clarify the conditions for approvals of plant protection products and biocides, to allow any natural or legal person to request the revision of a label or classification, or to require that the identity of manufacturers and importers be made public without any exception. Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. In a working note, sent to delegations on the 11th of September and published by Contexture, the Spanish presidency proposes to allow increased production of packaging materials to solve the waste reduction equation. The idea is to give member states flexibility in achieving the targets, by allowing certain packaging materials to increase production until they exceed a certain percentage. Soil Monitoring Directive. The ENVI Committee is not ready to share the work with the Agri Committee on the Soil Monitoring Directive. The ENVI Committee opposed the request, formulated by the Agri Committee, to be associated with the work on the Soil Monitoring Directive in a procedure with joint committees. On the 7th of September, Pascal Canfin, chair of ENVI, sent a letter to this effect to the President of the Conference of Committee Chairs of Parliament, which Contexture consulted. Pascal Canfin proposes that the Agri Committee should limit itself to the drafting of a report for an opinion. In the absence of agreement between the two committees, the Conference of Committee Chairs will have to decide on the dispute. European Regional Development Fund, Cohesion Fund and Just Transition Fund. The European Commission is consulting to assess the Just Transition Fund. This assessment, to be published in the fourth quarter of 2024, aims to review the effectiveness, efficiency, relevance, coherence and added value of the EU for each cohesion policy fund. The contribution period will close on October 9. G20. The G20 leaders met in New Delhi and released a joint declaration soothing fears that the disagreements over the Russia-Ukraine war would prevent a consensus. This declaration reaffirms the position taken during the last G20 with commitments to triple renewable energy capacity globally by 2030 and a statement that developing countries will need billions in funding to achieve their climate targets. Horizon Europe and Copernicus. The European Commission and the United Kingdom announced on the 7th of September a political agreement on London's participation in the research funding programme. This fund, with more than €95 billion for 2021 to 2027, is used to support innovation in the field of climate and energy. The return of the United Kingdom to these two European programmes must be ratified by the Council of the European Union, before being formally adopted in the specialised